Hey babes, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are doing this natural kind of makeup look. I want to give you 5 extra tips to help make your makeup look perfect. And a lot of the tips can be applied for creative makeup and also just natural. I thought I would do a natural everyday look just so you can see how it can be wearable. Number 5 is also my favorite tip. It just finishes everything off perfectly, so make sure to watch out for number 5 at the end. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Victoria. I love all things beauty, skincare, hair care. I also do quite a few vlogs on my channel as well, so if that's something you're also into, then make sure you subscribe. I upload every single Wednesday at 5 PM and subscribing is literally free, so you've got nothing to lose. But in a moment you're going to see me with absolutely no makeup and I'm going to talk you through 5 tips to help you with your makeup game. You're going to feel amazing, trust me. So let's get into the video. Okay, so I've just done my eyebrows and my eyeshadow base. So I've just done a little bit of concealer and then set it with powder. You'll have to excuse my throat, by the way, throughout this video. It's like a little bit sore. So I've just kind of primed my eyes. I know I look a little bit crazy at the moment. Like my hair's all over the place, but we're gonna fix all of that. So I'm just gonna zoom you in for the first little tip. So for this one, we're obviously talking about the eyes, and this tip does actually go for the face as well, so I'll kind of like come back round to it in a little bit. So today I'm only going to do a natural look. I'm just using the Fine eyeshadow palette and it's in the light version. You can get light, medium and dark. And in my makeup lessons I've basically been learning really creative looks, but the principles kind of apply to natural looks as well. So what I basically learned is to apply the darkest shadow first, which kind of goes against everything ever for me, but just trust the process. So I'm going to go in with like a dark kind of brown shade. Again, I don't want to do anything too heavy today, so I'm just dipping in this one here and I'm going to tap off the excess, and then all I'm going to do is just pack it on the outside. I'm using like a fairly dense fluffy brush, like it's not too dense, not too fluffy. So just kind of tapping it on and re-dipping in that shadow if I need to. And I'm going to do the same on the other side as well. Just building up that colour so it's got like its true pigment. So all I've done is just added a dark shadow in the outer corner. That's it so far. Then I'm going to move up a little bit and use a slightly lighter shade. And this time I'm going to use a fluffy brush which has a slight taper to it. I'm just going to use the shade above it. So this is the one I was using before. Now I'm going to dip into this one. So I've dipped in my brush, I've tapped off the excess, and this is the real tip. On my eyelid, I want to take the lighter shadow 50% on top of the darker shadow and 50% on my eyelid that I haven't covered yet. So then I'm just going to go back and forth. She also has taught me that she uses swiping motions instead of circular, because circular, especially on like my eye shape, spreads the shadow around a lot and you get a lot more precision if you go from side to side. And obviously on the outer corner it might be more natural just to do a little bit of a circular motion because obviously our eyes are circle. But then for this section you kind of want to do more swipes. And you can blend out the edges, so you want to go 50% on and 50% off where you've just added that colour. And you can already see the difference. It's so much more blended, so much more nice. I feel like it's probably actually a bit better if I show you with a more creative look, so let me know if that's something you want to see. But I thought a lot of you are just going to want to know the tips that you can apply to your everyday makeup. So that's kind of like where I've started, but if you do want to see a more creative look, then let me know. So already looking a lot more blended. I feel like in the viewfinder it looks quite pale, but in person it's like quite a nice natural smoky eye. And lastly I'm going to take the biggest fluffiest brush of them all, and again we're going to move up the scale, so we're going to go even lighter to this. It's like a kind of cream bone shade. They do obviously go lighter, but I'm just going to stick to this one just to fade out the blend. So all I've done is use these 3 shades. And when you're working with an eyeshadow palette, it's really important to look at the colourways that they've actually put in the palette. So I didn't realise this, and this is what my makeup tutor told me. When you're looking in an eyeshadow palette and they've laid them out, they usually actually lay them out for you in colourways. And they're usually either downwards or across. So it should make it really, really easy for you to just go in and pick 3 shades to do this 50-50 method with. And that literally applies to any colourway. It applies to greens, pinks, browns, like whatever it is. So here again, I'm just going 50% on and 50% off the previous shade. If you want to, you can go back in and go over the colours to make them a little bit more pigmented. But essentially the first tip is 50% on and 50% off to get your perfect blend. Okay, we're back onto the face. So now we have our eyes done. I just added a little bit of mascara, by the way. I'm gonna move on to the face. I'm gonna apply my little primer. I'm just using the e.l.f. Power Grip Primer. So how have we all been? Before we move on to the next tip, I want to know, what have you been up to? How are we doing? How was your bank holiday as well? Because obviously we just had Easter Sunday, well, it was Good Friday, Easter Sunday, and then bank holiday on the Monday. So I was like, oh yes, 4 days off work. Lovely. Let me know what you got up to in the comments. Okay, so tip number 2 is kind of like 2 tips combined, to be honest. So I don't know if you've noticed the elephant in the room, but I have a massive yellow head on my face. And I was actually like, for once, I was like, this is perfect for my video, because if you also get breakouts and kind of like spots where you're a squeezer, I feel like I've got it on lock and I know what to do now. So if you've got an event or you want to do your makeup, you want it to look nice, and you're like, oh, I've got a breakout, do not squeeze it. I know that is so hard, because literally I've been looking at this all morning thinking I need to get that out. However, you can do it, just not yet. Just think, I'm gonna postpone this for later. Because trust me, when you squeeze it, it's gonna go red and it's gonna go watery, and covering watery makeup is a nightmare. You're gonna make it so much harder for yourself. It's gonna be worse, trust me. So what you wanna do is leave it for now, and we're actually gonna cover the pus. Sorry if this is TMI, but it's real life, all right? We all get breakouts. For tip number 2, we're learning how to cover a breakout when it's looking like this and you need your makeup to go well. Take a tiny bit of translucent powder. This is the Huda Beauty one. And I think eyeshadow brushes work really well for this. So I'm gonna use a more dense one, and I'm gonna conceal the actual spot. So we've done our skincare, we've done our primer, and then I'm just gonna use the NARS Pop Concealer in the shade Custard. I'm quite careful when it comes to redipping as well. So what I do is I load up the brush. I almost get like a bit too much on the brush, and then I pop that on the back of my hand, so I've got like spare if I need to redip, and then I won't go back in, because I don't really want to be like putting it on the spot then back in the pot. It's all a bit unhygienic. So try to make sure you do that if you do have like a pop concealer. Pop some on the back of your hand as like spare. And now you've got your brush, just go over the spot, cover it in concealer, go over any other ones if you need to. I have a little bit of redness around my chin from a few breakouts, maybe like a little bit on my forehead as well. Also, you will notice that this concealer is fairly dark, so the combined tip for tip number 2 is to match your neck. And you will see that with my foundation in a second. But when you are matching your face is always going to be the palest part of your body, because you wash it. And kind of like your hands, like they are the palest. So you want to make sure you're matching like your body instead of your face. So that is why my concealer is a bit dark. And then I'm going to take a fluffier brush. Again, it's just an eyeshadow brush, but it just works really well for this. I'm going to dip it in my powder and then really lightly just coat the top of the breakouts. I know it's weird, we've not even done our foundation yet, but trust me. Just really lightly coat the top of that concealer, and you shouldn't have too much concealer on where it cakes up and kind of goes all weird. If it goes like that, you've put too much on, and that is all you are going to do. Now we're going to move on to foundation. Also, top tip, if you put too much powder on, just give your face a little spray with some setting spray. This is the Wee Cherie setting spray from the Beauty Crop. I'm just going to pop some on, add a little bit of hydration to the skin. And for foundation, I might actually go in with a HMB Skin Tint. I know this isn't like a proper foundation, but I am actually going to work today, so I do want to look nice and glowy, and yeah, I just really like this. I don't want anything too heavy, so I'm just going to pop some on the back of my hand. I use the shade GT5, and then I'm just going to take this P. Louise brush. It's nice and kind of fluffy. Just going to blend it into the skin really nice. So kind of continuing on from tip number 2 is to match your foundation or your skin tint to your body. So now I'm just going over those breakouts and they're already looking a lot better than if I were to just go over with the skin tint. If you're new to my channel, by the way, you'll have to excuse my squeaky chair. I do know it's there, but I don't really know how to fix the squeaky chair, to be honest. Just going in with a little bit of concealer now. I feel like you guys thought I was gonna do a bank holiday vlog, which usually I would have, but basically I've kind of been like all over the shop. Like I've been all around the country, like London, Manchester, and obviously doing content is quite full on alongside my full-time job. So I really just wanted like a weekend at home with my boyfriend. We were planning to go to Norfolk because that's where all of my family live. So I don't live anywhere near my family. We live about 3 hours away from each other. So we were gonna go there, but I don't know, it seemed too full on. It just seemed too much. So we literally just spent it at home and it was so nice. It was honestly like one of the best weekends ever. We just like potted around the house, like got stuff done, and we just like spent time together. We like went on walks. We made our own pizzas, although they didn't actually turn out that good, to be honest. And we just like started a new series, you know, just like doing things like that you don't do when you're so busy. So that was what I did. Not much to vlog really. So for tip number 3, I think I have actually mentioned this on my channel before, but basically take a wet sponge or a damp sponge and then basically go in and remove excess product from areas that are easily gonna smudge. So especially if you are a glasses wearer like me, I always get glasses marks, so I always go over my nose with a sponge and basically just try and remove any excess product. So the main points for me are over the bridge of my nose and my smile lines. That is where makeup creases, it's where it gets in the most. And of course, if you've got glasses on, then obviously it's gonna like move a little bit. But by doing this, it basically removes as much excess product as possible. So if there's less product there, the less it's gonna look creased. It's not gonna totally get rid of it, don't get me wrong, but it just makes quite a big difference with the amount it creases. Especially on the bridge of your nose when you've got glasses on, the less product there is there, the less of a drastic difference you're gonna see, trust me. So that is tip number 3. Make sure you go in with a damp sponge and remove any excess product. Also, if I'm going on like a date night with Corey and obviously we're gonna like kiss, I always make sure to do the tip of my nose, because when he kisses me, the end of my nose like rubs off and I'm like, oh no. And if I've got really heavy makeup on and it's like really heavily powdered or stuff like that, you just get like this massive smudge mark and I look like Rudolph. It's actually ridiculous. So if you're going on date night or gonna be kissing people, then do the end of your nose as well. Let's move on to blush, which is tip number 4. You can use any blush really, but I'm just gonna use this P. Louise one. I don't know what the shade is, but I got it in my advent calendar and it looks like this. So it's just a really nice cream pink blusher. You can obviously use any shade and any brand, but I would always recommend going in with your cream nice and high. So tip number 4 is to place your blusher nice and high. So keep it nice and high on the cheekbone and then let the blending do the rest of the talking. So I like to place it on my cheek. And when I'm placing it on my cheek, I kind of go no further in than my pupil. I generally aim for the end of my eye here. Sometimes I go a little bit crazy because I just love blusher. So definitely no further than your pupil. So once I've placed it on, it obviously looks a bit crazy. Just making sure I've got like a nice little layer on there. Now I'm going to use this brush to blend it in, but I'm going to keep it nice and high. Keeping your blusher nice and high, it's going to give you that lifted appearance. If you bring it low on like the apples of your cheeks, as we were like traditionally taught, smile and then like add it here, you're bringing everything down and you're just gonna look, I don't know, like old. I realise I've got a little bit of mascara under my eye as well. So once you've kind of diffused the edges and kept it nice and high, I'm just gonna go over with a sponge and just gently dab it out, keeping it nice and light. So again, we're putting little layers on. Better to do more layers. And that is the blusher applied. As you can see, it's nice and high on my cheekbone and you've got no kind of like excess product building up around your nose. That is one of my favourite tips. But next we are going to go on to bronzer. For bronzer, I'm actually using a fairly new one to me. This is the Be Bare bronzer and this is, I think it's called Bronzed Bliss is the shade. And I used this the other day when I had a more like heavy makeup look on and I wanted to try it with a more natural look. So I've tried it once since then and I really liked it, so I'm going to try it again. I think this is like my third time using it. When I'm applying my bronzer, I'm just going to swing back around to the fact that we want to do the 50-50 method. So if you remember at the start, I said it's going to come in later as well. Here it is coming in. So bronzer and all kind of cream products in general really, just make sure that you're blending 50-50. So when I'm putting my bronzer on now, I'm just blending 50% on top of that blusher. So you're not going to look patchy, they're not totally separate, and the pigment is actually going to blend into one another. I'm still working on my blending for sure, especially on my forehead, because I get a really patchy forehead when it comes to bronzer. I don't know why, and I think it is just part of my skin. It's always in the same point, like on here. There's just a little bit that won't blend. There's also another bit here that just never seems to blend for me, no matter what brush or bronzer I use. So I'm still working on it, but what I've learned so far is that if I blend 50% onto the other shade, whether that be an eyeshadow or whether that be blusher, it always seems to give me a little bit more of a flawless finish and a flawless look. Again, I'm not bringing it too far down, so I'm really concentrating it here, but I'm not bringing it like all the way forwards. So you can see here I kind of don't really go past my pupil. Then once I've placed that down, if there's any kind of bits where I think I just need to blend that in, I'm just going to go back in with the blusher brush and blend that together. And again, just making sure that 50% is nice and seamless. So the 50% between the bronzer and the blusher, blending them two together. I'm going to add a little powder. I'm going to use my powder puffs. This one is from Trigwell, but this is just like an unbranded one. I do think the Trigwell ones are like really plush and squishy and fluffy. You can tell the difference, to be fair. I'm just gonna press my powder puff in lightly. Also, when it comes to the breakout, a powder puff is going to be really good, because if you're using a brush it might move some of the product under there, whereas a powder puff you can just get your powder, dab off the excess, and then just go over the top and press on top. It's literally so satisfying going in between your eyebrows with a little powder puff. Oh, it's like one of my favourite parts. I'm just going to take the bigger one and gently go over the rest of my face. Some people don't like to powder their entire face, which I do totally get, to be fair. Most days I don't, but just because I want this to last all day, I'm just going to give it a light dab with powder. It's also going to help with tip number 5. So I don't know if you can see now, but obviously my breakout is still there. It's not going to totally go away. There's no wateriness, there's no redness, and that's the best you're going to get. If you have a breakout, it's there. However, the redness and the wateriness you can prevent. And you wouldn't look at my face now and think, my god, she's got a massive pussy spot on her chin. Well, I hope not anyway. It's only if you come really, really close that you can actually see it. And I think that's probably the best result from a breakout. So I'm just going to quickly do my under eyes and finish off the eye makeup. I'm just going to run a little bit of shadow under there and then do some mascara. I'm also going to add my lips on, and then I'll be back to tell you tip number 5. Okay, I'm back. I've done my lips, I've done my eyes. So we're on the home run now. If you want to know how I got my lips to look like this, by the way, in my last makeup tips video, I show you how to do this. It's like a really clever illusion. I go through how to do it and I literally show you the difference in the lip. So I'll pop a little like link so you can go and watch it if you want to, but make sure you stay tuned for tip number 5. This is the last one. So the 5th and final tip is to lay your cream products, and if you've been kind of like following along up until now, you'll realize that we have been doing that. So we've done light layers of everything, and now the final step, I promise you won't look cakey, but add powder on top of your creams. We've done our blush, we've gone over with a sponge, we've blended it all in nicely, then we've gone over the top with a little bit of powder, and now we're just going to top it off with a little bit more, but I promise you won't look crazy. So I'm just going to take the powder end to the blush that I used before. Okay, my camera just died, so definitely need a new camera battery. It seems to be dying so quickly at the minute, but anyway, just whilst it was charging a bit, I've just straightened my hair, so that is why my hair has changed. That's what I was going to do at the end of the video anyway, but I thought I would do it now. So as I was saying, I'm just going to take the powder end of the blusher I was using. Essentially tip number 5 is just to always top up your blusher and bronzer for a few reasons. Once you've completed your makeup, it just balances everything out and gives it a little bit more pigment, and you should be able to tell the difference that it's just giving it that little extra pop. For bronzer, I'm just going to use this P. Louise palette. So this has loads of different bronzer shades in. I got this again in the advent calendar. So I'm just going to tap away the excess. And again, I'm just going to top up that bronzer because it's going to give me that longevity as well. That's another reason why I think everyone should just top up their blusher and bronzer with powder as well. The cream and powder duo is just unbeatable. Like, it's gonna last so much longer, it's gonna look so much better with a little top up. And again, you can go in and solidify that 50-50 method. So once you've added them on, you can just go back in and make sure that they are nicely blended together. And I really feel like that gives a whole complete perfected look. Hopefully you can tell. And now I feel ready for the day. If you want to, you can go ahead and add a little bit of setting spray, but just because I've got oily skin, I'm not going to do that. I want mine to last all day. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. This is the final look, and considering I had like loads of breakouts and stuff at the start, I don't think you can tell anymore, and I definitely feel a lot better. Hopefully at least one of these tips has helped you. I do have another video, as I mentioned at the start, with 10 other tips, so if you want to go and watch that, then I'll pop a little link above. It's super handy, I promise. I actually had people in person telling me how handy that video was, so it's definitely worth a watch if I don't say so myself. But please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I will see you next week for another video, Wednesday 5 PM. Mwah. Bye babes.